Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? Pleasant good evening, dissidents. Welcome one and all to the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Tonight, we are going to waste no time introducing our very special guest. He is the host of the Jimmy Dore Show and a comedian whose new special, COVID Lies Are Funny, is available at jimmydorecomedy.com. He is also on tour, coming to a theater near you. The Beetlejuice of the online left. Say his name 55 times in a stream, and poof, shows up very next time. Here he is. Jimmy, good to meet you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming on, Jimmy.
How are you guys? Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Indeed. It's a long time coming.
Show?
What's that?
When did you start your show?
We started the show in March of 2019 as an audio podcast and blog. Yeah, it's just we suck really bad. It took us this long to get anybody to watch us, but we've been actually doing it for 4 years. No, we started it.
Most of our followers are bots.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we started as an audio show with a blog, and then we didn't really start doing YouTube until about a year ago.
So it's interesting. So people still do the audio only. I did that for like 10 years. I thought I had a pretty successful audio podcast. I would get like about 50,000 downloads an episode, right? And I thought like, well, this is as good as it gets, you know? And then I went on YouTube, and my whole world changed completely, almost overnight. Like,
well, that's why we came, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the power of YouTube. When I tell people, whatever you're doing, make sure you put a camera in front of you and put it up on YouTube, because it is the best delivery system in the world. And I still think it's so people must listen to podcasts only like if they drive a lot in their car, like when they go to work and back. Right. For people, no, okay. So I don't spend that much time in traffic, so maybe that's why I don't listen to audio podcasts.
That's the thing. Anyway. It seemed presumptuous of me to impose myself on people in video form. I figure I can only expect people will listen to me while doing something else. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it was too bold to demand their full attention by doing video. Although now you can actually put the YouTube in the corner of your phone and drive while listening to YouTube.
Yeah, that is correct.
And now they have YouTube podcasts where you can put your podcast on YouTube, but why would anybody want to do that? The whole point of a podcast is that it's kind of uncensorable. Where, like, why would you subject a podcast to the same censorship that we're subjecting ourselves to here on YouTube?
So they don't. So Apple Podcasts, for instance, they let you say whatever you want about COVID and stuff.
I mean, unless you're like Alex Jones and like the hit is out on you, where like all of corporate America is like out for your ass. But I'm pretty sure if you have a podcast, it's very hard to cancel a podcast, because what are they going to have people listen to an hour and a half long podcast to find where you said something that you shouldn't say?
It's not as strict as this space.
Not nearly. Not nearly. I don't think.
They have, like, what YouTube has is algorithms that pick up words you're saying.
Exactly.
And so like if I put terrorism in the title, it'll get demonetized, right? So you learn those things as you go along, how to get around those kind of censors. But Yeah, we live in a world. Isn't it funny? Did you ever think that half the country would be totally cool with censorship? Like I thought that, and especially it's the wrong half. I thought it was
Right,
the
it's
other half.
right, the left half. That's literally one of the questions I have for you. So we will definitely get to that. But yeah, no, it's amazing. And when we first started the show, we had like 60 to 75 people listening to each episode. But you're a comic, so you might relate to this. Russell and I are both theater people. We both used to put on plays in like 50-seat houses. So like if 30 people showed up to watch the play, that was a hit. That was a huge night, right? 30 paid customers in the door. That's amazing. So we weren't discouraged immediately by the fact that we had fewer than 100 listeners per show. That's what let us keep at it.
We'd be sitting there saying, "Oh, we had 17 in the chat tonight."
Yeah, not bad.
We're doing pretty good. So getting to our first question. So Jimmy, you're traveling around a lot. On the road, you're doing a tour right now. You're actually coming to my hometown, New York, in August. They're going to come out and see your show. I think for a lot of people on the coasts, what's going on out in the country is an abstraction, but you're out there seeing it. What are you seeing in America? What are you seeing when you're out on the road? How are people doing? What does the country look like?
I'm always the country looks like it's hurting. That's exactly what it looks like. If you read Chris Hedges' book, America, the Farewell Tour, that's what it looks like. It's funny. It's Tucker Carlson did his episode number 3, and he talked about this. And he talked about, drive away from your house in 500 miles in any direction. Tell me what you see. How are the people doing?
Right.
And are they in a good mood? Even. And this is the richest country in the world. You're going to find every bridge falling down, potholes in the thing, and people living under. And so that's what I see. And I'm surprised people have money to buy tickets to see anything. I'm always surprised. I was on stage in Cohoes, New York, which is a suburb of Albany.
I live right down the road. If I weren't a dad of 4-year-old twins, I'd have come out and seen you. I live like 8 minutes from there.
You are such an idiot. You fucking live right there and you didn't come see one of the...
No, I'm so sorry.
It's unbelievable. That's such a beautiful theater too. That's the prettiest theater I ever played.
Yeah, Cohoes Music Hall.
I went to school up there. That's why I won't even have a plant. He's got 2 kids. What can he do?
2 kids. My wife works at a hospital, so it's like if she's working, she can't break it. And I don't think I could have brought the kids.
Yeah, no, you definitely could. How old are your kids?
4.
No.
4-year-old twins.
Yeah, so then you'd have to pay money to get a babysitter. But I could have put you on the list and could have saved you that money right there. So
I could have. The other problem is I moved here 6 weeks ago, so I don't know anybody. I don't know any babysitters.
Oh, you just moved there from where?
From Newburgh, which is a suburb of New York City.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What made you go there? Because your wife get a job or something?
She got a job up here. So we relocated,
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, next time I'll be back in about 18 months.
I might come with Russ down to Irving. Where are you playing? Irving Plaza? Gramercy.
Oh, yeah, the Gramercy Theater in Manhattan.
I'll go there. I'll make I'll make a date out of it. I'll make a friend and I'll get them to babysit the kids.
Okay.
So that I can come.
But anyway, so I'm on stage in Cohoes and or they say Cohoes.
Yeah.
And so just I don't whip like I got an urge to do some crowd work. And so I just pointed at a guy in the balcony and I said, "Hey, what's your name?" And he said, "Dan." And I said, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "I used to be a union leader at the railroad for 10 years until what just happened and Joe Biden smashed their strike." And he said, "I quit. And now I work for Verizon." And so we had this, I mean, this random, I just pointed at a guy and that's who's in my crowd in Cohoes, New York. And those are the people, those are the stories I'm hearing, right? So I know who these people are. I meet them all the time. I met probably 100 people after that show, personally shook their hands, tried to spread COVID as much as I could. And press breathe all over everybody. Right. So that's what I'm seeing out there in the country. And I tell people this, I said, capitalism, there was a long time capitalism helped bring people up out of poverty. And now it's the exact opposite. And everyone in the world knows it, that capitalism is what's pushing people into poverty extracting wealth upward, which is all that happens in neoliberalism. Money never gets invested into people. Money gets extracted out of people. And where does it, and it comes from the workers. It always does. So I don't, but I think people are ready to push back now. I think so. So we actually had a conversation with that guy during my show. Like, we probably talked for like 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes during the show. And, you know, they're like, what do we do? They kept asking me, what do we do? Right. That's what people always say. What do we do? And I always point to Christian Smalls. That's what you have to do. You have to organize along class lines, which is what people who vote for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden will never, ever fucking do, because that means organizing with Trumpers. And they don't understand that the Trumper is not their enemy, that they've been propagandized to think the Trumper is their enemy. The Trumper is suffering under the same neoliberal bullshit that you're suffering under. And they've got you hating on each other over bathrooms because they don't want to give you health care, a living wage. They don't want to end those wars and invest that money back here. And that's what this is all about. And so what I tell people when they say, what do we do? I say, you got to do that. You got to look at your neighbor as your brother, not your enemy. You got to get in the streets with them like they did in Canada, what the truckers did, and you shut down capitalism. When I got to this point, I was saying this, when I got to that point and co-host, the police started fucking cheering. When I said, you got to do what the truckers did, you got to shut down capitalism. And they all started, and these people are not anti-capitalists that come to my show. These fucking people, but they are ready. And they just need a leader. And a lot of people thought that was me. It's not. But I'll help that person, you know, a lot, as much as I can. And so I think that's what we need. And that's, people need an answer. And people would go to, you know, see Chris Hedges speak when he would do book tours. And I would see videos of it. People get so pissed off at him because he didn't have a solution. And he's great at outlining what's happening and what's the problem, what's really happening. You know, the flip side of what the corporate news shows you was happening in America. He showed you what's really happening. And people would upset that. And that's my answer. My answer is people have to see their neighbor as their comrade. They have to see their neighbor as their neighbor and not their enemy. They have to see them as someone who shares a common issue. That's your neighbor is your ally. Your neighbor is not, but that's what they want you to think. They want you to hate half the country. They want you to think half the country is white supremacists. Half the country is fascist. And people love to throw that term around, fascist. People like this. It's funny. I only hear them calling Republicans fascists. That's always interesting to me, because you're just reinforcing this two-party duopoly when they throw that term fascist around. And why did they throw that around? Why did that all become popular? Because they have to pretend that a game show host who never even wanted to be president in the first place is a 10-foot tall monster of unforeseen proportions before, in order to get you to vote for a fucking dead guy who's demented and is your enemy, which is Joe Biden. And that's why we're doing this. That's why you hear fascist, 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 fascist. There's no bigger fascist than Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, George Bush, and right now Joe Biden. There's no bigger fascist, right? The least of them was Donald Trump. People are equating now racist with fascist, which is funny also, and pretending that Joe Biden's policies aren't racist. You know, what do you do when you deny Black and brown people health care, a living wage? What do you call that? Well, I don't know. Is that racist? I would call that. And of course, everybody knows Joe Biden is a famous racist. That's the irony. The reason why Black and brown people are locked up at higher rates than white people isn't because of Donald Trump. It's because of Joe fucking Biden.
Right.
Anyway, I mean, you had Stacey Plaskett send Matt Taibbi an email threatening him with 5 years in prison based off a segment she saw on the Mehdi Hassan show on MSNBC. If that's not fascism, I don't know what is. I mean, that was our take on that as soon as that came out.
Well, of course.
Absolute fascism.
And AOC jumping right on that narrative.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
maybe he perjured himself.
It's amazing. It's the craziest. I never thought I would see this, but again, this is because the Democratic Party isn't the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party turned its back on workers a long time ago. I would say 1993, and maybe even before that, but definitely then. And that's why they're So all they have is narrative control now. And that's why the Democratic Party's in bed with the government to censor its critics. And that's what the Twitter files revealed. And of course, the establishment media is going to make it look like that was no big deal. And that's not that. So if the establishment media doesn't say it's a story, then it isn't a story. It's amazing. I go to dinner, with comedians. And I used to think comedians were, first of all, I was always proud to be a comedian. No kidding. Very proud to be part of the comedy community. There was always certain comedians I didn't like, but as a brotherhood, as a fraternity, I always was proud to say I was a comedian because we were always the ones saying the thing that you weren't allowed to say. We were always the skeptic and even a cynic, right? But it's just amazing to see in the era of Trump that comedians have totally lost their way. 100%. They're totally contradictory. They become anti-intellectual. They shame ordinary people for thinking and reading. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And they do it with the most righteous indignation I've ever seen. No matter whose special you watch, they're shaming people for going against the COVID narrative, which was the biggest psyop in the history of man. There's no two ways to put that. It was never a dangerous virus for regular people, and I don't want to get you kicked off YouTube, so I'll be careful. But
that's the whole arts community. We both come out of theater, and we often lament that they're all shit libs, all of them. It's amazing. You thought it was this cool art scene of bohemian rebels, and nobody screams louder to deplatform voices they don't agree with than the artists. It's incredible.
So I thought that I always thought when Hitler showed up that the arts community would stand up against him.
Right.
And they thought they were. They thought that Trump was Hitler, but he wasn't. He's a fucking game show hope. If he was a dictator, when COVID happened, he would have completely controlled the country. What he did was, I don't want to fucking deal with this. I'm going to give it to Fauci, and I'm going to give it to every governor. You do whatever the hell you want.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I had a question. Sorry, go ahead.
The opposite of a fascist dictator. The guy's a game show host, and the reason why he became president is because people won't fucking vote for Democrats anymore because they saw the game. So that's why they had to make Trump out to be a 30-foot tall fucking monster, fascist, Hitler, and Stalin combined. Because if he wasn't, then what? How could you justify voting for Joe Biden? That's the only way, and they're still doing it. And it's sad to see people fall for it. I see Cornell West falls for it sometimes, but I'm super excited that he's in the race.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Cornel West, but while we're on the topic of your comedy, I actually had this question for you because now your audience is a very sort of heterodox viewpoint, diverse audience, perhaps more so than it was when you were on TYT. I'm not sure that that's true, but that's the way it seems from, hanging out in your chat and things like that. And so was your audience as a comic out on the road or when you would play, the joints in LA, Chicago, were they always this viewpoint diverse, or did the audience sort of change as times changed and as politics sort of evolved? And has playing to a viewpoint diverse audience, has that made your job as a political comic sort of easier or harder? Because I could see how it could probably go either way.
So what I do in Los Angeles, so when I go out and tour, I'm playing to people who paid to see me on purpose. They like me already. They know who I am. So they're coming out to see me. Nobody accidentally walks into a Jimmy Dore show, stand-up comedy show. But here in Los Angeles, I go up in comedy clubs all the time where the people don't know who I am. They don't know I'm coming. And for me, that's different. It's special. I like it. Not more or less, but I like it equally to playing to people who already saw me, because there's a certain thrill into getting an audience to go along with my way of thinking, right? If I can, and I use comedy to get in there. I sneak in with comedy. And when I can do that, when I can turn it on. So I've noticed, so I go up and I do my COVID jokes in Los Angeles, and they always worked, but they are working so much better now. They always worked, but now I got off 2 weeks ago. I got off stage and some of the people in the room stood. Now these are people that didn't know me, right? And so all of a sudden, and it was like this cathartic thing. They couldn't fucking believe somebody was fine, especially a comedian who's been shitting all over anybody who's been thinking for themselves during COVID.
Right.
It was just and so that's how it's been going. So I make sure I go up in front of crowds that don't know who I am, that are politically diverse. Nobody knows who's in the crowd, and then I think that keeps me honest, right? It keeps me sharp too, and I don't just want to be preaching to a choir when I do my stand-up comedy, because it is easier when people pay to see you. People are coming out to see me on purpose. It does make the comedy, and sometimes it makes me think like, well, is that actually funny, or they just agree with me? Right. And comedically, it's important to me to actually be funny. And so that's why I do those shows. And so so I hope that, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting question. And I think,
audience
that was a great answer.
My audience used to be just almost strictly Bernie people. Right. And that was in 2017.
Right.
And then it's slowly started to turn. As the Democrats started to get even worse, you know. Right. So a lot of those people stayed with Bernie. That's the problem, is that the people who followed Bernie, which was half of the Democratic voters, half of the Democratic primary voters in 2016, half of them supported Bernie Sanders. Half, so that would be half of the people who vote Democrat supported Bernie Sanders. They were sick of the two-party duopoly. They saw through the corporate news. They would chant CNN sucks at Bernie rallies. That's all over. That they don't have any criticism for the Democratic Party, for Joe Biden, for corporate news, for fucking anything. It's all about red man bad, or Donald Trump, corrupt fascist.
Most dangerous.
Yeah, most dangerous, corrupt. And it's like it's the craziest thing I have. So Bernie Sanders turned on his own fucking message. Those people don't know what to do or where to go. And so they hear me saying critical things of Bernie Sanders and they get their fucking feelings hurt. And I say half those people finally woke up to Bernie Sanders being a fraud, which he is. And so it's funny. So I would say when you come to see my show, it was just the other night I was in Hartford, Connecticut, and the manager's like, I'm really curious to see what your crowd is like. I go,
it's funny. I live 10 minutes away from Hartford, Connecticut.
I said, you're going to see hippies. You're going to see businessmen. You're going to see young college kids. You're going to see senior citizens. You're going to see black people, white people, Mexican. You're going to see all kinds of people. And just like if you went to I was in Philadelphia one time, and there was a table full of Hasidic Jews at my show.
Wow.
So I do get a diverse. And so that always made, when I would go see George Carlin, I remember that was the thing that stuck out to me from when I saw him the first time, was his audience, not his act. It was the audience. I couldn't get over it. There were fucking all kinds of people. And that's exactly the kind of audience I've curated or developed, and I'm really couldn't be prouder of it. Just, I was in Hartford, Connecticut. I just love it when these giant men, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. These giant men tower over me, and they'll say things like, Jimmy, I'm a conservative. And I go, okay, that's okay. He goes, no, I mean it. I'm a conservative, but I love you. And they know they don't agree with me, but they love the fact that I'm willing to tell the truth, and that's all they want, and that I don't hate them. I don't see them as my enemy. Right. That because I disagree with them about healthcare or whatever, I don't call them a white supremacist neo-fascist. Right. I don't fucking play that game. These people are regular people. Don't even know what the fuck neo-fascist means.
Yeah. And that, also, if we're going to segue into talk a little bit about Cornell West, I think those two things that you just mentioned, you tell the truth and you don't hate them. Right. Those are two core appeals of Cornell West, I think. And that's one of the things. It's one of the reasons why I'm excited that he's running. Certainly, obviously excited that he's running outside the two-party system on the green ticket. I think people get the sense that he's a straight shooter and that he has love for people. He doesn't communicate this sort of sneering condescension to people. What's your take on him and his run?
I share that view of Cornel West. The word that always comes to my mind is integrity.
Right.
And I think he has a lot of integrity. I think people sense that. I think that's why he's a threat. I hope he can develop a message that will help him organize along class lines with Trump voters, because that's what he has to do to be successful. And those are the people who don't have a voice. That's why they turn to a guy like Donald Trump. You know, I interviewed a guy named Nick Smith, who's a Waffle House cook in Virginia in the 2016 election. And he told me, he said, you know, Jimmy, as he was going to vote for Trump. And I said, why? He says, you know, Jimmy, we all know that Donald Trump's a loudmouth Yankee. He should have had his ass kicked a long time ago. But he's the only one offering us anything. And there you go. So so then they vote for Trump. So then you want to hate those people because they're all racist, they're white supremacists, and your enemy because they vote. No, they're desperate. That's why they voted for fucking Trump. And that's the message Bernie Sanders should have brought to the country, and he didn't, because Bernie Sanders is a fucking coward.
Yeah. No, I'm a tour guide in New York City. I remember I had my tour group out on the Statue of Liberty. We're waiting for the ferry to come in. This one guy's got a Trump hat, MAGA hat, right? This was during the primaries. And so another guy turns to him, so you like Trump, huh? Says, yeah, I'm supporting Trump. He says, I'm for Ted Cruz myself, but, you know, we'll see what happens. The guy with the MAGA hat, with the Trump hat, says, I mean, Trump's a fucking jackass. We all know that. But he's the only one big enough to win and do anything, right? So even his fanboys, half of them think like, yeah, no, this guy is a schmuck. You know what I mean? I mean, that is so common a sentiment among his base.
What else do you need to know? That's why you can't demonize his followers. And you said, I don't even demonize him. It doesn't serve anybody. But
no, he's funny, man. The crates in the bathroom, that's hilarious. It's the funniest shit I've ever seen. What's funny about him is how lazy he is. You know what I mean? Like, you just leave the documents in the spare bathroom somewhere. Don't bother to hide them. Oh, what do you got? 8 bathrooms here, Mar-a-Lago? Yeah, that one nobody uses that often. Stick of it there. It's hilarious. How could you hate him? How could you hate the guy?
A lot of
can't hate a guy who's that funny. I just can't. I don't have it in me.
To it. So you speak out a lot about corporate comedians like Stephen Colbert, like Trevor Noah. Is that a new phenomena, or was there always the Carsons and the Carlins? Is it really different today?
I think so. I didn't think that Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert and I thought the late night comedians would always stick it to whoever's the biggest jackass. And they didn't play favorites. I didn't think anyway. I mean, I always felt that I could have hosted a show 10 years ago and made fun of Barack Obama, even though I voted for him. You know, that's what I felt, but it's complete. So those people who host those late night shows, they work for the people who control Barack Obama. They work for the people who control Joe Biden and the Republican Party. So that's why their comedy looks like it does, right? They're the ones pushing it. That's why they got that job. They don't get that job because they're hypercritical of the system that put them in those shows. They're not. And that's what Chris Hedges always said about Jon Stewart is Jon Stewart's funny, but he doesn't criticize the system. And he is right. And now we see what happened, and it's a big letdown. Like Stephen Colbert was a hero of mine. So is Jon Stewart. Still is like I just the shows that those 2 shows they did were just wonderful.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah.
And just amazing. And so I'm not going to let their recent shit livery take that away from me. Like, you know, like I still enjoy Bullets Over Broadway, even though it's Woody Allen. I'm not gonna let that be taken away from me. You know,
right.
So that's how I feel about that. But it is unbelievably total and complete. If it was late night comedy in the Soviet Union, that's what I would think it would look like.
Exactly.
You know, Chomsky, there's a quote. I don't know if Chomsky actually said it, but it was attributed to him, and I'm going to butcher it. But the quote was something like, "Any dictator would be thrilled with the obsequiousness of the American press, right? They would be thrilled. It's worse here. That's the difference, because here in the United States, people don't think they're being propagandized. They think they're getting the news, whereas people in the old Soviet Union and people in China know they're being propagandized. And that's the big difference. And that's how you get a country to go along with the war in Syria. That's how you get a country to go along with the war in Libya, Afghanistan for 20 years, and now Ukraine. That's how you get that done. We have 1,000 military bases around the world. Nobody else has that. We're the only ones. It's like a joke. It's like everybody knows how empires end. They end by they overextend militarily, and we can't even take. We got people living under every bridge. We just built three new military bases in Philippines, and we just built a new military base in Syria, which is a country we're illegally occupying. But remember, Putin's a thug.
Right. I mean, to me, I would think, because like I said, I've never been a stand-up comic, but I've done some stage play writing, some screenwriting projects and things like that. An audience, whether it's for a comedy show or a dramatic piece or even a podcast like we're doing now, to me, surprise is such a key element that every audience has to feel in order for what they're absorbing to seem worthwhile. And to me, you go into the Colbert audience, you got to know most of the jokes before he tells them. Like, it's very obvious what he's going to say. This is why I asked you, like, does it make your job easier or harder? Because in a sense, Colbert's job is easier because he's only sort of making a pitch to this narrow slice of the population who comes and sees his show and who watches him on TV. So in a sense, that makes it easier, but it also just really cheapens the craft because people have to see these jokes coming a mile ahead of time. There's no surprise. I mean,
Colbert is unrecognizable.
Unrecognizable. When Jon Stewart went on his show and did the joke about the Wuhan lab.
Oh yeah.
Which was, again, just Jon Stewart showing his comedy chops. He has them. It was brilliant, so funny, and
the Hershey, Pennsylvania chocolatey goodness outbreak. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Maybe stuff. It was a penguin.
Colbert just kept stepping on it, stepping on it.
Yeah, he kept stepping on it. Yeah.
Because he knew what Jon Stewart was doing was going to get Jon Stewart kicked out of the shitlib circles, and he didn't want to join him. And so that's why he was doing that. And he called him a right winger. He called him, how long have you been working for Ron Johnson? He said,
right. Yeah.
Wow. He was basically calling him a right winger, which is what they started doing. And Jon Stewart didn't get mad at his buddy, Stephen Colbert. I don't know if he did or not. Who knows? Maybe he did. He should have, because Stephen Colbert was throwing Jon Stewart under the fucking bus when Jon Stewart was being faithful to comedy. And Stephen Colbert was not being faithful to comedy. And so I found out that for a whole year, Jon Stewart was on the outs with the shit libs, and he felt it and it bothered him. And so and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, now I get why he did that interview with Condoleezza Rice and Hillary Clinton, where he gave him a tongue bath and not one hard question. What if that's why he did that? That's also why he pinned a medal on a Nazi at Disney World. A literal Nazi, not someone I want to call a Nazi, someone who calls themselves a Nazi.
Exactly. Yeah.
He did that, and he'll never apologize for it. Never said anything else about COVID. Never stood up and said this is crazy that we're still demanding vaccine mandates on Hollywood sets. We're the biggest Nazis in the world. Never. He won't. That's why he won't tell the truth about Ukraine. And I'm like, oh, that's what this is. Oh, so now I know what it's about.
There's a lot of willingness ever since Alex Jones on the part of tech platforms to demonetize people, to deplatform people. As you and many others warned, that was just the beginning. We've seen with the Twitter files, these tech platforms are more than willing to work with the government to censor people. My question is, as the country becomes more and more restive, and now you have this Cornell West campaign possibly threatening the Democratic Party, did they wind up just pulling all of us down? Did they just wind up canceling independent media? Does YouTube just shut all of us down? Is that a concern of yours?
It's a concern that I will personally be taken down for sure. Yes, and especially because they go back through your catalog. Like when RFK Jr. announced, they went back and started taking people's videos down with the RFK Jr. I remember when Theo.
I took all my COVID shit down. As soon as they started whacking people for that, I went through the catalog. I'm like, all right, unlisted. And that's not down yet, but I took them out of the
as Keaton calls it, we're in East Berlin.
East Berlin, right? Exactly.
We did a show on Rumble last night. It was so much looser.
That was so fun.
You could breathe. You don't have to second guess 3 times what you're about to say.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
What I got, the way it goes on YouTube is they give you a warning, and then they give you a strike, and then they give you another strike, and then it's over.
Right.
Have you ever gotten a strike?
I got a warning over COVID. And it was obvious that they had gotten one of those Twitter file notices from someone in the government or wherever, because they couldn't come up. They had to come up with a lie of why they were censoring me. First of all, they don't show you the content that would cross their lines. They don't tell you what it is. They don't give you the words. They don't give you the content. They don't give you the video. They don't give you anything. That's right away suspect. Second of all, they said that because of what I said about I said that I had figured out that it didn't stop transmission. The whole idea behind mandates was that if enough people got vaccinated,
sure,
we could eradicate this virus, just like we eradicated measles and polio and all that stuff. You take a
virus stops at every vaccinated person.
And I had figured out that wasn't true. And how I had figured that out was two ways. One, the countries that had the highest uptake of the vaccines were some of the countries that were having the highest outbreaks. Second, I had Dr. Robert Malone come on my show, who's one of the original inventors of the mRNA vaccine technology, if not the original, who's worked on vaccines his entire life, holds, I think, 5 or 7 patents on vaccine. So the guy likes vaccines. He's dedicated his whole life to vaccines. And he came on and they made the guy sound like he was an anti-vaxxer. The guy who's dedicated his whole life to vaccine. They're using the mRNA technology he invented to push these things. And then they try to make that guy out to seem like he's fringe and crazy. So I had that guy on my show, and he told me that you can't vaccinate your way out of this. In fact, it's the wrong way to go, because what it does is it creates immune escape. It's like when you medicate farm animals, and now they've created these super bugs. He goes, that's actually what's going to happen. The exact opposite is what they told people. They told people that if you don't get vaccinated, you become an incubator for new, deadlier strains of the virus, which is not true. That was a lie. And so but if they told people that would make people hate people who didn't get vaccinated, because they were putting your life at risk. That was never the case. And he told me it was a leaky vaccine. And what is a leaky vaccine? That's the terminology Dr. Robert Malone used. And what a leaky vaccine is, that means even if you get vaccinated, you can still get the virus, you can still transmit the virus. So
that became obvious pretty quickly, yeah.
So I knew this, and I would broadcast this on my show. I would say it doesn't stop transmission, it doesn't stop contraction. So when I got my warning, I had an in-person meeting with someone from the YouTubes. I'm not a body language expert, but boy, was this guy. It's super obvious he was nervous and he knew he was lying, right? He couldn't take his hand away from his mouth the whole time he was talking. And the reason they gave me why I was getting that warning was that I said the virus doesn't stop transmission. And I said, but it doesn't stop transmission. And they said, yeah, but it slows it. So you have to put it in context. You didn't put it in context. I go, so what I said was technically correct, right? They go, yeah. I go, and I'm still in trouble?
Yeah, what's amazing about this... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I could say it's true health fact and I'm still in trouble. They go, you have to give context. So I left that meeting and I looked up at the FDA's website. It said, we do not know if the vaccine stops transmission. We hope it does. That was the verbiage at the FDA on that day in whenever that was, October 2021. And they've since changed it and I sent that back to them. I go, the fucking FDA doesn't even say it, that it slows it. They say they hope it does. They then said back, oh, no, it wasn't. It wasn't that you said that doesn't stop transmission. It says that you said it didn't stop contraction.
They're full of garbage. Look, my first experience with all this was not in YouTube, not in podcasts, was as an Uber driver. I drove for Uber for a while. I still drive DoorDash and Grubhub and all this stuff. And one of the things that Uber makes the drivers do from time to time, they make you take a selfie when you log on to make sure that you are driving the car that's registered under your Uber so that you don't subcontract it out. Okay, fair enough. I'm clean shaven tonight for you, Jimmy. I want it to look like a pro. But sometimes I have a beard, sometimes I have stubble, right? In my profile picture, I look like I do now. On the day I happened to be driving, I had a small beard. So I took the selfie check, I failed the selfie check, and they deactivated me. You are no longer welcome to drive Uber for life. This is a permanent, irreversible call. I called 6-7 times. It's just people reading off a screen. No, we're sorry. You violated our safety conditions and things like that, and you're out. I had to call these people 15 times. Finally, one of the, customer support, driver support people told me, okay, go to the green light hub where you can actually talk to a human being. And I went and I said, look, this is obviously just me with a beard. You're going to tell me I can't drive anymore? 60% of Uber drivers drive full time. That's their life. You tell them they can't drive anymore because they had a beard when the selfie check came in, that fucks them completely. They're screwed. They can't eat. I had the wherewithal after 12 phone calls to keep pursuing and keep pursuing. Most people wouldn't. Most people hear this is irreversible. That's it. They finally, when a human being looked at it, they reversed it. But these tech companies function more or less the same way, whether it's Google, whether it's Uber, whether it's DoorDash, whether it's Amazon. There's no human element. This is all robots. And so you can make whatever case you want. They're always going to come up with some generic bullshit excuse why, no, we're sorry. It's very rare that you'll find a human being to actually apply some human decision-making to the process, I think.
Here's an interesting twist. So when I had Dr. Robert Malone on, I did that off. I didn't do it a live stream.
Right.
And I took that video and I sent it to YouTube. And I said, hey, can you look over this, make sure it's okay? I don't want to put anything up on YouTube that violates your rules. It seems reasonable, right?
Right.
So they looked it over and they go, no, it's okay. I go, it's okay. And they said, yeah, you can post it. You could have pushed me over with a fucking feather. I couldn't believe it.
It's fascist. It's fascist in its arbitrary nature.
It's arbitrary. Yeah.
So wait. So then that goes up, and they suppress it. You can't find it. Try to find it. They suppress it. It's still got 700,000 views. With all the suppression they did. I then have RFK Jr. on. I thinking I'm going to send it to them. Hey, could you look over this video? I don't want to put it up. No, we won't look it over. Huh? Why won't you look over? He goes, no, we can't do that. We can't be pre-looking. We can't be pre-screening them. I go, but if I put it up, you're going to fucking look at it, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Of course we are.
Right.
Well, I'm going to put it up. Why don't you just look at it before you put it up? So I don't put up something that's going to injure your viewers.
Right.
Wouldn't that make more sense if you pre-fucking did it instead of post?
Right.
Because it seems like now this is about control, which is exactly what it is.
Right. All right. So let's. I want to get a couple of questions in on some of the recent topics here before we let you go. So from Russiagate through the 2 impeachments and now 2 indictments. Your position on the targeting of Trump has remained pretty consistent. So can you give some thoughts on this latest attempt to knock Trump out of the game with the bathroom boxes gate?
Yeah, I mean, this is what third world dictators do. They imprison their political enemies, which is what Joe Biden and the establishment did. I don't think it's Joe Biden's idea. I think it's whoever his handlers are, right, which are people from Wall Street and the military industrial complex. And so they've been wanting to lock up Trump since he got elected, right? And so that's the irony is that Trump used to say that lock her up about Hillary Clinton because she's a criminal, but they're all criminals, right? And so then they said, oh, you can't do that. That's what fascists do. That's what dictators do. They lock up their political opponents. They criminalize them. That's what they've been doing to Trump since he won the goddamn election. Are you fucking kidding me? And it's obvious that's what this is. And I mean, remember the last time when that DA Bragg in New York tried to indict Trump, and even CNN was like, yeah, this is bullshit. Even CNN was like, this is bullshit. This is more of that. This is more bull. You're going to get him over fucking some document thing. George Bush and Dick Cheney walked the earth. They're bonified the worst war criminals in my lifetime. They're all war criminals, by the way. But they ordered a torture program. Barack Obama was supposed to prosecute them, didn't do it. Constitutionally, he was supposed to. And so those guys walk, but somehow Donald Trump has a box of documents in his bathroom, and that's disqualified. That makes him a criminal. So so if you want to see what this is, that's what this is. And and here's the part that people will not accept is that if Bernie Sanders actually had the nutsack to grab power, which he does not, Bernie Sanders, they would be doing the exact thing to Bernie Sanders because they already started doing the exact thing to Bernie when he was just running for president. What did they do, Jim? Well, they Russiagated him. They said he was a traitor to our country and that foreign body that was our sworn enemy was supporting his candidacy because he was an enemy of America. The same thing they did to Donald Trump. What else did they do, Jim? Well, they said his followers were racist, sexist, and they were violent. That's exactly what they did to Trump. So, and that's before Bernie even won a primary, right? Didn't even win a fucking primary. You know what I'm saying? That's the shit they were doing to him. So you don't think if Bernie actually became president and tried to give us Medicare for all, that they would be doing the worst to him? Of course, that's what they would have ran him out of. He would be a criminal. They would find something to put him in jail for. And that's exactly what they're doing to Donald Trump.
Yeah, and that college thing his wife was involved in, that would have become the big story, right? Whatever that was.
They let it go because he was no longer a threat.
Yeah.
When you said back then, as with a lot of things, you were ahead of the curve. When Bernie endorsed Hillary, you were out ahead saying he's sheepdogging people back into the Democratic Party.
Which is what he was doing.
It is what he was doing. You turned out to be right. Same thing with
it would
the
have been
squad.
one thing. It would have been one thing, Russell, if he would have got something for that. He didn't. He didn't get them to get rid of super delegates. He didn't get them to get rid of fossil fuel money or to get rid of big pharma money or get rid of any core. He didn't do it. He extracted nothing. Just like when he endorsed Joe Biden, he got nothing. He told his followers to do exactly nothing. Don't do anything. Don't protest. Don't get in the streets. Don't write letters. Don't do fucking anything. He asked them to do nothing. Sorry, I get upset.
And that's 2020. All it took was Whoopi to ask him a couple of mean questions, and he rolled over immediately.
Immediately.
He was afraid they were going to Sarandon him.
He said, it's funny. Chris Hedges tells this story openly that they tried to get Bernie to run third party in 2016, him and Cornell West. And he said, no, I don't want to end up like Ralph Nader. So he knows the game. He's like, he knows that, which makes me think that anyway, it just makes me think horrible things about him. And it's not pleasant.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, those were very desperate times, and to have that campaign just implode the way it did under those circumstances, yeah, I mean, that was a very, very troubling few months there, and, that's part of why I think it's so important that Cornel West, is running outside the two-party system. I mean, it's an imperative, because I think not only does it represent, a threat to the two-party system, but also, he gets to now make his case on his own terms. My beat from day one of this has been that a big problem with Democratic primary politics is Democratic primary voters who are uniquely incurious, they're uniquely shallow, they are uniquely trusting of the mainstream media. 70% of registered Democrats trust mainstream media. Only 30% of the overall population
they're
trust
the last
media.
People in the country.
Right, they're the last people in the country, right, who still, absorb CNN, MSNBC as truth. And so the value in running outside the two-party system, and this is why RFK should do it too, is you get to appeal to ordinary people, the kinds of people who come to your shows, right? Like that, those are the people who are persuadable, who are convincible. Registered Democratic primary voters, you're not getting anywhere with them. You're talking to a wall.
I don't know if they're uniquely. I mean, yeah, I guess the fact that they still believe them. I can't. I went to a dinner a couple months ago with three comedians from Boston in Los Angeles. They live in Los Angeles. It was crazy. It was so nuts. It was like at one point in the dinner, I just turned to the guy next to me and I go, "Is there anything that you read in the New York Times that you don't repeat? Is there anything that you're
exactly?
Is there anything that I said, where do you get your information? He goes, I read 3 newspapers a day. And I'm like, I'm going to guess.
That's the problem.
New York Times, Washington Post, Boston Globe, right? I was right. And who do you fucking think? You're getting your news from Jeff Bezos? Do you think that guy's telling you the fucking truth? You think you're getting the truth from another billionaire who owns the fucking New York Times? What the fuck is wrong with you? They where do you get your news from? I go, I get my news from fucking guys on the ground in Syria. That's where I get my fucking news from. I get my news from people who know something, and it's certainly not funded by a fucking billionaire. That's where I get my news from. I got my news from Bill Binney, who was the #1 NSA code breaker, who the FBI tried to throw in jail. He's so smart, he out-fucking maneuvered them, and he told me there was no way Russia hacked into the DNC server. Personally, I had him on my fucking show. I had him on my show in 2016. We debunked Russiagate before it ever fucking started. That's how I know.
Well, this is the trap, and there's no breaking out of that trap with these people, like the people who you ate with, because these mainstream media sources, whether it's New York Times or MSNBC, CNN, whatever, they will marginalize voices like the ones you just cited. And then when you cite them, they will say, oh, Bill Binney, haha, because the New York Times will not validate those sources, right? So if you read a Gray Zone report and you cite it, and somebody asks, okay, where'd you hear that? Oh, I read Aaron Mate's piece in the Gray Zone. Oh, the Gray Zone. You know what I mean? There's no how do you break them out of that spell? It looks pretty hopeless on that score. You just have to circumvent them. That's why it's so critical if you're going to run a campaign to do it outside the two-party system, I think.
You're preaching to the choir. I said the same thing to RFK Jr. when he was on my show. I said, they're never going to let you grab power. So right. This is moot. This is really doesn't make sense. And he's like, I think and I'm just like, no, that's not good. They are not going to they fucking killed your father. They right. killed your uncle. You don't think they'll fucking kill you if you become that close of a threat? They're going to throw Trump in fucking jail. What do you think? So yes, it is a fool's errand what he's doing. I'm glad he's doing it because a lot of people who are Democrats listen to him. Did you know that half the people who vote in Democratic primaries have a positive view of RFK Jr.? Can you believe that?
Yep.
After all the garbage and all the propaganda that's been thrown at him, still half the people who vote in Democratic primaries have a positive opinion of him.
Well, half of them are over 70. They think
out
he's
of the
his
Democrats.
father.
You can't take the Democrats out of the Kennedy.
Well, that propaganda it's a hell of a thing because you go to my so I have Google alerts, right, on my name. So whenever someone writes an article where my name is, it pops up and I go see what they're saying about me. And just today I saw one guy wrote an article. It's a guy from the DSA, which is the CIA. And he said I'm a conspiracy theorist because of what I said that because Assad didn't gas his own people. Well, he didn't gas his own people. But they still repeat it because CNN said that. So it's still, if you go to my Wikipedia page, you would think that Assad gassed his own people because they said I'm a conspiracy theorist because I said he didn't. He did. That's the opposite of a conspiracy, by the way. It's saying that the guy didn't do something. That's not a conspiracy.
Right.
It's like with Russiagate. I was debunking a conspiracy. The Russiagate was the biggest conspiracy theory of my lifetime. I debunked it. People called me conspiracy theory because I was debunking. It's the fucking craziest thing. So that's all they have. People are catching on to that, though, that they call you a conspiracy theorist as a way to try to discredit you. That's the first thing they do. But it's amazing that people still believe the lie about Syria, that they still use that against me. And Seth Rich, if you look at Seth Rich, they said I was a conspiracy theorist because I said I covered the Seth Rich. All I did was cover it.
Right.
And right. I never gave a theory of what happened. I just covered it. I said, there's questions. Where was he for 3 hours from when he left the bar to when he got shot? Nobody knows where he was. Where the fuck was he? And how come there isn't any surveillance film? What about his computer? So now we know that the FBI lied, said they didn't have his computer. Then they lied and said they did, but they couldn't get the data. Then they lied and said that they had the data, but because of the law, they couldn't give it to you. And so now they don't want to release his thing for 65 years. But I'm still the conspiracy theorist because the FBI doesn't want, they've lied time and time again about his computer. And now they don't want to release it for 65 years. But somehow I'm the conspiracy theorist for asking questions. I remember I was on a panel on the Young Turks and I turned to Ben Mankiewicz and I said, Ben, because we were talking about Seth Rich. And I go, Ben, can you name me one other unsolved murder investigation where journalists weren't allowed to ask questions about it? And right. No, he said, no, I can't think of one. I go, because there isn't one.
Right. Now, one of my favorite quotes about the Clinton body count thing was the Joe Rogan saying, I'm not saying she's killed people, but I worry that she's killed people. I worry she's killed people. Like, it's a possibility she's killed people.
So, so you're having, I think, an experience in public that a lot of us have had in our personal lives post Sanders campaign. A lot of people that you've mentored, a lot of people you've supported, claim that your politics have changed and that now you're right wing.
They never say what the right wing thing is, though. You ever notice that? Yeah, you ever ask them what right wing policy does Jimmy push? That they never. No, first of all, no one ever asked them that, which bothers me. But the second thing is they never say which right wing policy. They can't. Is it because I'm against censorship by the government and corporate America? Is it because I'm telling the truth about Ukraine? Is it because I'm telling the truth about what the fuck is right wing about what I'm saying? There's nothing that they're calling Cornell West right wing. You saw that MSNBC called him.
Yep.
They said the quote was that his DNA is right wing or something like that.
Yeah. They're saying it's a guilt by association.
Yeah,
he
right
went on
wing
the Russell
DNA
Brand show
in his campaign. I think that was MSNBC, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, why don't you guys have him on then, MSNBC? Oh, that's right.
Oh, of course. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
He'll get an invite everywhere.
So I've stayed exactly the same. I've stayed exactly the same to my lefty principles, which are bodily autonomy. Isn't that amazing? My body, my choice. But totally went out the window during COVID. I used to say that to my friends who are comedians who used to say my body, my choice. And when I said that to them about COVID, they were like, "Oh no, this doesn't go for COVID." What? So it's someone else's choice now? It's my body, but someone else's choice. Yes, it's someone else. So I'm the one who didn't abandon my principles. And what I say is that if I was wrong about COVID, and I was wrong about the vaccine, and I was wrong about lockdowns and masks and all that stuff, if I was wrong about it, my friends could forgive me if I said I was sorry. They'll never forgive me for being right about COVID. They'll never forgive me. They'll never admit they were wrong, and they'll never forgive me for being right. And I'm just going to have to live with that.
So you recently did a segment, speaking of conspiracies that are out in the open, you did a segment recently about BlackRock and others driving a woke agenda. There was a video that went kind of viral of a pride float that was kind of interesting for Lockheed Martin here. So for this year, for the first time, we're seeing a backlash against pride. You're seeing the Target boycott. Bud Light is just no longer the number one beer in America.
What does that fucking mean? What are those fucking people? What is their fucking message? What is that goddamn message? Those people, and what is their fucking message? That gay people are horrible also? Because that's what the message is I'm getting. Gay people are horrible fucking murderers. Did you know gay people are fucking the worst people in the world? Did you know that? Because that's what that tells me.
Yeah, I was about to say, they don't look as evil as they are in that float. Like, that's not what I think when I think the people behind the scenes at Lockheed Martin. You know, they look pretty benign there.
The rainbow bombs have confetti in them.
Right, the rainbow bombs. Yeah, exactly.
And so where is all this shit coming from? Well, how does Lockheed Martin, when murderous that runs our death economy, how do they make money off killing people? So how do they become virtuous? Well, they get a good DEI score from a gay organization, and now they're virtuous people because they're inclusive and they have equity and they're diverse. And that's where it came from, that video of I played on my show a couple of years ago. The head of the CEO of BlackRock was talking about DEI and ESG. Is that it? And it's all about this. And the BlackRock, the rapers of humanity and the planet, are now getting a virtue signal score from LGBTQ organizations. That is where all this shit is coming from. And why does BlackRock want us fighting over this stuff? Because they don't want us looking at what the fuck they're doing. That's the same, it's so crazy. With Spotify, like when they went after Joe Rogan, and it was they used that Neil Young, that rocker, right? Remember, it was him, and those are people used to protest GMOs in their food.
Joni Mitchell.
5 minutes ago, they used to go to protests over GMOs in their food. And now you won't let someone question a fucking experimental medical treatment they're being forced to take? You fucking assholes. And of course it wasn't them. It was BlackRock who owned his fucking catalog.
Right.
That's who did that.
Right.
It was BlackRock. Oh, so the good people at BlackRock give it. You know why? Because they're invested in the COVID vaccines. They're invested in all that shit. They make more money if your small business closes. They do when during the lockdowns. That's where all this shit's coming from. I watched another video where they have, Warren Buffett's, whatever that company is called, Hershire Black, whatever it's called,
Berkshire Hathaway.
That's it. So they have their shock shareholders meetings. Once you got to have them. And so this guy who's a big shot lawyer, head of some fucking loyal thing, been going to these meetings forever, been giving speeches for that you're allowed to give a speech. So he gives a speech. He starts talking about how fucked up it is that Warren Buffett is in bed with Bill Gates because Bill Gates has these agendas that he's pushing, and it's got to do with gender stuff and all that, and all this woke politics is coming. That's where this fuck. And Bill Gates funds the media. He owns the media. He got smart. He puts hundreds of millions of dollars into journalism schools and fun. Like, for instance, the way it works on PBS is he'll call PBS and say, "Hey, I want to give you a grant so your news hour can go cover science and medicine." Oh, really? Right. What science and medicine do you want us to cover? I want you to cover this new vaccine I'm invested in, and I want you to make it look like I'm doing it all and that's exactly what happens. So Bill Gates does it with the Guardian. He does it with all the newspapers, does it all he donates money to them and he tells them, here's what I want you to cover, and they cover it. And they don't tell you anything. They didn't tell you he had $55 million invested in the COVID vaccine. And then he cashed it out, made $500 million off us. And as soon as he did, he started shitting on the COVID vaccine. And he started pushing this other thing that it's inhalant. He goes, oh, the inhalant is the thing we got to get to because it's infection blocking. I looked it up. He fucking is invested in of course, this is what this is. And people don't realize Bill Gates, who's the number one supporter, financial supporter of the WHO? Bill Gates. Right. Bill Gates does more than countries. He gives more money than the United States to the WHO. And they already have another video of the former head of the WHO admitting that they have to do what their donors say because they have to ask. The WHO can't operate without money from their donors. So then the donors get to tell them what to do. Bill Gates, their number one donors, he has invested, and that's exactly what's going on. So we're being ruled. So now on YouTube and in my life, I can't do anything against what the WHO says, which is coming straight from Bill Gates's mouth, who is a fucking predator. How do you become a billionaire? How do you think you become a billionaire? By helping people. He became a billionaire because he's a fucking predator, a capitalist predator, like everybody else, a monopolist who squashes people. That's who fucking Bill Gates. He's a megalomaniac. That's who he is. And he's been running this whole fucking thing, and people have no idea. And so I don't know what the question was, but that's my answer.
Well, in the middle of COVID, he lied. He said they weren't releasing the IP because they didn't have the manufacturing facilities in other parts of the world to make the vaccine. Now that's somebody who should be in prison.
No doubt about it. The AstraZeneca, they weren't going to release that. They were going to give that away.
Right.
They're going to give their vaccine. And Bill Gates is like, you can't fucking do that. So he stopped them from doing that, from giving their vaccine away for free and made them. It's all a scam. They didn't vaccinate Africa. Turns out Africa did fine with COVID. No problems.
Right.
Oh, isn't that weird?
Well, and you were also never allowed to say that 78% of the people with a bad case were obese.
You were never allowed to say that. You were never allowed to say that there were early treatments, which there were, and you weren't allowed to say that. We've been lied to on a scale our brains can't comprehend when it comes to COVID. And I have a rage inside me over it because people I've known all my life turned on me over it. Like somehow I woke up and I decided to start lying about COVID. Like it never dawned on them, like maybe Jimmy's right. Well, Jimmy was right about Russiagate. And it seemed clear that Trump was working with Russia. It turns out Jimmy was fucking right about it. Jimmy was right about Syria. Jimmy was right about Venezuela. Jimmy was right about fucking Bernie sheepdogging us back into this bullshit party. What the fuck else do I need to be right about before you start thinking, hey, maybe Jimmy's right? They never. Still to this day, I still see those people in public with fucking masks on.
What's the next thing you're right about? Do you have any stock tips you can give us in the audience?
I can't predict the future, but I can tell you what's going on right now.
Right.
That doesn't help when it comes to stocks.
All right. Fair enough. I had to ask.
I
Owed it
know.
to myself and the audience to at least give it a shot.
So when you look at how entrenched and powerful these interests are, do you feel that we can actually fight them as a people, or do you feel the system is too far gone?
Well, COVID made me think that it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, put it that way. And that who I thought would be my allies in the fight aren't going to be my allies in the fight. It's really wild.
Well, this is, I think, a lot of why a lot of people, like you mentioned, people got frustrated with Chris Hedges because they say, well, he paints this very clear picture of how fucked everything is, and they get mad that he doesn't have a solution. But I think there is at least some sort of spiritual value in telling the truth. Is there not? Like, just like,
100%.
isn't that what we have to do, is tell the truth? Don't we owe people the truth? The truth doesn't always come with a positive message at the end. Sometimes the truth just is what it is, and sometimes you have to sit with whatever feeling it gives you, because otherwise you're lying to yourself, and that's not productive either.
The whole point of me getting into doing a YouTube show is because I wanted to tell the truth, because the corporate media isn't. That's the whole point. That's why I did a public radio show for 12 years.
Right.
Is because I wanted to tell the truth, and they let me. And what's the point of I don't understand, especially doing comedy. It's just like, what's the point of doing comedy if you could? That's the beauty of comedy, is you can use it. We're supposed to be the jester. We're the one person who are supposed to be able to tell the truth to the king. And of course they don't. There's a lot more money in the other thing.
Well, that's what I think the real divide is now in this left. You know, we talk about divisions in the left and left infighting post-Bernie. I think the real divide is between a lot of people who come from an activist background versus people who come from like more of an arts background like you do. I think people who come from that activist background have to gin themselves up that, no, we can fix this now. We can do this right now. Let's go. Let's do it. And anybody who paints a bleaker picture, they call a nihilist. Well, you're a buzzkill. You're just dragging us down, right? But you know, maybe it's because Russ and I are theater people. Maybe it's because you're a comic. I think people who are more artistically minded come at this from like, okay, when we're on, whether we're on a stage or on a YouTube screen or a TV screen, wherever, when we're on, we must communicate the truth as we see it to the audience, no matter what, no matter where it leaves them. Whereas I think the activist brain have to sort of take that truth and then figure out a way to package it in a way that gives people a sense of hope. Okay, let's go get him. And that leads in certain cases to a certain like fundamental dishonesty, because sometimes there is no plan right now. Sometimes you just have to sit with that.
Well, I consider myself an activist, and I think that's what Force the Vote was. It was a huge action. We got over 100,000 people to a town hall on YouTube. We got people to write articles about it, talk about it. That's activism. We put pressure on politicians to do the right thing and to stand up for the people they represent. And that was very, even though it didn't succeed in the way I wanted it to, it certainly succeeded, because it exposed exactly the rot inside the Democratic Party and the rot inside what we consider the left. And when you say the infighting in the left, there's no infighting. Those people are not left. Those people are establishment. So that fight is always between anti-establishment and establishment. And so those people who are against Force the Vote are establishment. Those people have MSNBC contracts. Those people take $24 million from DNC donors. That's who those fucking people are. Those are establishment fucks. And so the idea that there's infighting in the left, there's no infighting. It's always been establishment versus anti-establishment. And if you're on the side of the establishment, I'm going to fight you. And I'm going to expose you. And they've all been exposed, from fucking AOC to Ryan Grimm to fucking Bernie Sanders. They've all been exposed for being establishment shills that they are. And that's my job. That's part of my job, exposing the establishment shills, like I did with the Young Turks, like I did with the Ryan Grimm and the Intercept. Although that was easy, everybody saw it anyway. It was just more fun for me. And now,
all right. Well,
he's over at Breaking Points, which is making it a concerted effort to get every story wrong.
Do you think just finally, I know you have to go, do you think the Cornell West campaign is going to give people something to coalesce around, or is it going to further divide people?
No, I hope it does. I hope he has a message. It's, you can't call Trump a fascist and then try to get his people to hear your message. You know, you got to at least call Biden a fascist at the same time, you know, because Biden's a bigger fascist, actually. So I really hope he has that message. I hope he can, you know, his rhetoric has been fiery and a bit divisive. So I hope I'm sure he will. He's very smart, and I'm sure he'll come around. I just can't wait for this goddamn primary to be over, because that's when he'll really have a voice, right? So right now we got RFK out there, you got primaries happening in the Republican Party and so as soon as RFK is out of the picture, I think that's when all the focus is going to be on Cornel, and that's when I think he will have honed his message by then, and I think he will be able to coalesce people. That's my fingers crossed hope for him, and I'll help him.
You don't like Marianne's chances?
Oh, I think
that was a joke.
No, I think she's got a real shot.
Yeah.
I think this is a serious candidacy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's very serious.
Jimmy, it was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for making the time for us. We will see you. I will see you, I promise, at the Gramercy Theater August 25th. Russell and I will be there. But thank you so much for making time. Really appreciate it. Great to meet you.
I don't know how many listeners or viewers you have in Bakersfield, but for some reason my tickets are moving slow in Bakersfield, so I'd like to hone in.
All right, get out there, Bakersfield.
If you're near Bakersfield,
where is Bakersfield? Is that Bakersfield? Is that in
California? It's California.
Yeah.
About a 2-hour drive away from my house in Studio City. So Bakersfield, I'll see you there June 24th at the Well.
Let's move those Bakersfield tickets.
So is Kurt Metzger going to be there? I'm not sure, but he might be. But anyway. All right, I appreciate it. It was really nice talking with you. I really appreciate you having me on. I whenever I catch your show, I always like it. So, good job.
Oh,
thank you very much.
Means
Jim.
a lot. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, have a great evening. Thanks for joining.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Jimmy Dore, everybody. Thank him very much for joining. 1,522 strong in here. Hit that like button, please. Hit that subscribe button, please. Thank you all for being here tonight. We knew we would have a big crowd for this tonight, and so we're going to do a few segments right now, actually. We figure while we got you here.
Wait, don't leave. We're going to dance.
Don't leave. Don't leave. All right, exactly. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents and help keep us going as long as we can. You can also go to dodissidents.substack.com. You can also click that join button next to the subscribe button down below the screen here and support us right here through YouTube. That's all very, very helpful. We're going to do some super chats now, and then we're going to do a couple more things before we end the night. Daryl Deachman, who was in here way before the show started. Congrats on the 10K, guys. Thank you, Daryl. We appreciate that. Also, congrats to Jimmy for finally getting his schmovid injured ass to Toronto. Was he in Toronto recently? I still have the T-shirt I bought when Dore was just a 10K schmuck like these two JOOs. Oh, yeah, by the way, little present for you guys.
I'll let you.
There we go.
Little new soundboard thing.
Added it to the soundboard as promised. Could not resist that.
I think I owe you all something. Jimmy seems like the kind of guy who probably would have thought it was funny, but on a first meeting, I didn't want to do this.
Well, that was way back.
I owe exactly. I owe it.
Yeah, you owe it. You owe it. That was old news. We had 600 in here right away for that. Yep. One of the benefits you get from signing up at Patreon is get your name up in lights here on our patron scroll.
Look, we get to use my favorite sound drop. We haven't gotten to use it in a while. We'll get to it.
All right. And you also get access to patron exclusive live streams. We did one last night over on Rumble. It was a lot of fun. That was a great show. You get 2 full-length bonus shows per month exclusive to the patrons. You get to join our cigar-filled back room, and hang out with us over on Rumble, where we are free to speak our minds exactly as we want. That was a little bit of a rowdy stream. Couple of punchlines there that we wouldn't have tried out on the YouTube airwaves, but it went well. It was a raucous good time, as they say. Riffsai became a YouTube member. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That's a big help. Pat Donahue, excited for tonight's show. It's great JD supporting smaller up-and-coming leftist shows when he's big and doesn't need to. It's a great solidarity on his part. Yeah, Jimmy's always been great about that.
Yeah.
Always been great about that.
Yeah, he needs us like he needs a fucking, second head.
Hey, listen, you have to keep your simping community happy, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
plants.
We've been riding those balls all up and down Main Street.
Exactly.
We're like fucking Pilates on those balls.
Yeah. Patrick, Jordan was quite rude interrupting, but might be worth keeping an eye on his on-the-ground reporting and promote it, be the bigger people. We've been in touch with Jordan since that interview.
Yeah, we've had
hard feelings. Look, he's a pro. He's a pro, and we've been in touch. I tried to give him a tip on a story he's working on, but it didn't work out. It didn't work out. I tried to get him in touch with somebody who had some dirt on Governor. What the hell's her first name? Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan.
Whitmer.
I tried to put her in touch with somebody who might have something to say to him, but she was not allowed to speak. So look. I mean, I saw status quo in the chat. I don't know if that's Jordan himself or somebody else in the operation, but well, look, we've been in touch with him since. He's a pro, and we said what we said.
We've been having a very productive online conversation, actually.
Abiding, thanks for the 99 cents. Appreciate that. ID80R, thanks for the $5. JD and DD, about effing time. Two of the few strongest on the left. Vanguard boys have got to be crying right now. I don't think so. I think they're all right. I think they're all right. Mercy Me, thanks for the $5. We appreciate that. Long story short, JD on margarita pizza, cheese over sauce, sauce over cheese. When in New York City, check out Patsy's or Lombardi's Coal Oven.
Listen, man, we're taking them to Bleecker Street Pizza for the Nona Slice.
That's the Bleecker Street
best slice in New York.
The Bleecker Street Pizza Nona Slice. It's funny because Russell and I did not pre-arrange what we thought the best slice was. I put Bleecker Street Pizza on a food tour way back when I was a tour guide in New York City. That is a wonderful slice. And to your point, long story short, what they do there, it's a Tuscan-style slice. So what they do is they actually put the cheese on the crust, which is a smart way to do it because part of the reason why crust tends to get soggy is because you put the sauce right over the crust, and then that crust takes on the moisture from the sauce. If you bake the cheese onto the crust, you protect the crust from the moisture, so the crust stays very crispy, and then you put the sauce on top. It's a brilliant slice. I actually never been to Patsy's in my years living in New York City. Lombardi's is good for what it is, but it's Lombardi's is fine for what it is. It's more a novelty though. It was never a go-to. And look, Lombardi's is not really New York style pizza because it's pie only. The real New York pizza experience is a grab and go slice, right? Not a sit down pie thing. I'll tell you a story about.
That's what we do. You want a whole pie? Go to fucking Pizza Hut.
Exactly.
Go to Papa John's. You want that shit.
One of my tour guides, when I was a tour guide manager, was this young kid. He was this European kid, very exotic French accent. He was a sexy as hell guy, man. He did great with tips, very charming guy. But he was a young guy, so he was a partier. So every once in a while, he'd show up to the tours hungover.
For anyone who says we're not gay friendly.
Yeah, right. There you go.
We're going to put that in the sound drop.
And one of the days he came super hungover to do the food tour with Lombardi's on it, and I could tell he showed up. His face was green, his eyes were bloodshot, but and at Lombardi's Pizza, he had to throw up, and he went to go to the bathroom, but the bathroom was locked. It was a single seat. He literally just reaches, grabs a pitcher of soda that a waitress was going to serve to somebody, dumps the soda on the floor, and Ralphs into the soda pitcher. Great representative of the company, right? Threw up in an empty soda pitcher. Luckily, I don't think people saw him. I think he was able to dispose of it and get away with it and just act like he spilled the pitcher or something like that because we didn't get complaints about him. But yeah, that was a risk. Garble, thanks for the $5. Looks like the hat Matilda glued to Danny DeVito. Yeah, he's got the fedora thing going. Makes it work. The fedora is risky. I don't have the confidence to try a fedora. I know Russell goes with not a fedora, but you have the Australian hat, right? The huge hat.
I have an Akubra.
That's what it's called. I forgot what it was called, but yeah.
If you follow me on Twitter, there's a picture of me with my Akubra.
Right. Yeah, that's your main picture that RBN used for the cartoon, the animation. Bill Vogt, thank you for the $3. We appreciate that very much. Thanks for the $10. Further, we need to start a fundraiser for RFK Jr. to go live and
live in Gaza for a year.
Live in Gaza for a year. His views don't belong here. He would fit perfectly in Israel.
Yeah, well, actually, we're covering that, right?
We are. We're going to get to that. We're going to do a couple segments here, folks. Give you guys who are here for the first time
give you your money's worth.
Little idea of what we do here over at Do Dissidents HQ. Give you a little sense of what we're about. The Do Dissidents audience is totally aware that vaccines are safe and effective. Yes, Tusker, thanks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we have to give the counter, right? So we don't get canceled.
She keeps reminding me.
Yeah, so we have to say, by the way, Jimmy Dore is insane.
The vaccines are perfectly safe and effective.
They're great. They're great.
May lead to heart palpitations, aneurysms, explosive diarrhea, impotence.
Bennett Weiss, 3762. Fetterman Feinstein, let's go all the way. There we go. That's the Imperial Decline ticket. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yusuf Rambo, $10. Thank you very much. Danny RG.
Thank you.
Tusker, thank you. Thank you.
Boom.
Cyrus.
That's why you got to have
$50.
Wait.
We need our singing bowl out. In fact, I think we're supposed to give our singing bowl to members, too.
My favorite sound drop. We haven't gotten to use that in so long.
Why don't you bring your singing bowl out so we can thank Cyrus for that lovely $50 donation?
He gets his own sound drop. He doesn't
appreciate it. Oh, you gave him the sound drop. Oh, I understand what you're saying. Yes.
Cyrus, man. That's his personal sound drop. I only
thank you so much, and thank you for the congratulations. Yeah, get his own. He's a permanent fixture here. Roy Astrietta, thanks for the $1.99. Graham Elwood and Ron Placone were Doors. Judas, thank you for the $2. I don't know much about none of that. But thanks, Dave Dillarai. Yeah, baby, way to go, guys. Thank you, Dave.
Woo!
We appreciate you, Dave. That's very kind of you. Axel, much love. Maiden is always a treat. Thank you, Axel, very much. All right,
I'll tell you something. I haven't done a show in a long time. But I have had the same ritual since I did my first show when I was 16. It's hanging over there. I have a Dio shirt that I always wear. At this point, it's like a vestment. It's what I was wearing for my first show. It's like tied at the shoulders now. And I play Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner by Maiden. Always.
Oh, there you go.
Before an opening night. Always.
That's a tradition. A dobular tradition.
It is.
All right, let's do a little bit. We got a few more super chats we'll get to in a few moments, but let's do a little stuff, shall we? Let's talk a little bit about RFK Jr. RFK Jr. went on System Update with Glenn Greenwald recently when he was asked about the Roger Waters affair. So I'm sure most of you guys, if not all of you guys, are up to date on all of this stuff, but just in case you aren't, Glenn sort of gives a little backstory before we get into this just absolute catastrophe of a response. So here we go.
A recent controversy in which you found yourself more as a window to understand some of your broader views, which was the praise you originally offered for Roger Waters with regard to his stance on both Ukraine, which he is opposed to in terms of the U.S. proxy war, as well as COVID. He was questioning a lot of the same orthodoxies you were, and then you ended up deleting that tweet where you praised him and made clear that the reason was because he had held views on Israel and Palestine that you didn't share. I want to ask you about the specific kind of divergencies that you have with him on that question. But before I get into that, why was it necessary for you to delete your praise for Roger Waters just because you disagree with him on Israel? Can't you praise him on Ukraine and COVID and then at the same time say, but there are other issues, including Israel, where I have differences? Why did you delete the praise entirely?
Okay, now the thing that's so bizarre, before we get to his answer, the thing that's even bizarre about the question is that Roger Waters came under fire for dressing up as a fascist. The accusation from the jump was that he was anti-Semitic. So if RFK was gonna jump in and defend him, isn't it to be assumed that he's defending him against charges of anti-Semitism? And given Roger Waters' very long and well-documented history of advocacy for the people of Gaza and the West Bank, he visited the West Bank in 2009. That's a video that we showed on our last show. How was it that you were unaware of his position on Israel when you defended him against charges of anti-Semitism? What do you happen to like him for other reasons, so you came in half-cocked and tried to defend him on an issue that you weren't even clear what the debate was about? Right? I mean, do you follow what I'm saying? This is a very bizarre timeline.
The more we see of RFK, the more I feel like RFK plays as anti-establishment because he's establishment 2.0 and we're up to establishment 5.0. So
Right.
when you knock up against things that go all the way back to establishment 2.0 era, he's right there. He's a Kennedy. He's a Kennedy. These kinds of views about Israel and the Palestinians of Gaza, these are views out of the 60s, out of the 70s. You know, he really hasn't modified it or developed. And also, I don't know what he's thinking in terms of his chances or his hopes, but clearly he probably doesn't want to alienate some supporters and financiers. But I think a lot of people saw him as some kind of revival of Camelot. Remember, Camelot was establishment. That was the establishment of its time. He represents an older, almost extinct establishment. He is not this anti-establishment outsider looking to burn down the system. He's looking to restore it to an earlier version.
Indeed. And here's his answer to this question.
Well, first of all, the reasons that I praised him was because of his position on the war, his position on COVID, which I thought was very courageous.
Right. The reasons I praised him had nothing to do with why he was being attacked. Right? Do you understand how just kind of dumb this whole thing is? Okay, I came in to defend him against charges of anti-Semitism, yet I actually agree with the people who are accusing him of anti-Semitism based on his position on the issue in question. Not very well thought out. Let's let him keep going.
At a time when nobody, and also his position on Julian Assange.
Right.
I disagree. I would say fiercely.
It's like saying I defended OJ because I think he's a good football player, right? Oh yeah, he probably did kill his wife.
I was only talking about his touchdown against Denver.
Exactly. It's like defending OJ because he could run the ball, right? I mean, it's
I really enjoyed his performance in the Naked Gun films.
Exactly.
With his criticism of Israel, and I'm not, there are enough people who characterize those political differences anti-Semitic that me endorsing him felt like I was buying into that, into something that was abhorrent to me. I really disagree with his. I think Roger, like many critics of Israel, first of all, people who criticize
he said like five different things.
It's a total. It's a
total fucking
complete mess, complete train wreck. Yeah, indeed.
There were people who thought it was anti-Semitic, not necessarily me. In case you are a Pink Floyd fan,
Right, exactly.
This is anti-Semitic. But people who apply a different standard to judging Israel than they would to judging an Arab country, I think then that you've crossed a line there. And
first of all, he crossed no such line. He made no such statement. Look, the moral calculus here is very simple. Israel is an apartheid state. They are an occupying force in lands that they were not supposed to expand to. They subjugate these people in these lands. They target them. In many cases, as we've covered in a few recent episodes, they just gun them down, blow them up. It's very, very simple. Very, very simple. He's acting as though Roger Waters is making a moral equivalency between, or committing some act of like moral hypocrisy by condemning Israel, yet giving Saudi Arabia a pass for the crimes against their people. It's absolute nonsense.
Which his whole tour, that whole section, lists people from all around the world, all different countries who have been the victims of state violence.
Right.
He doesn't give Saudi Arabia a pass. He doesn't give any country a pass. He doesn't give any region a pass. look, I didn't have any interest in bringing him on the show, but now I want to bring him on to just really throw him with the question, which album would you rather drop acid to, Dark Side of the Moon or Metal? See how he reacts.
All right, well, let him keep going a little bit. We're not going to watch this whole thing.
Do think that Roger does that. I've now looked at some of his stuff, and I think, like I said, I do not think people who criticize that people who criticize Israel policies should not be called anti-Semitic. But I do think that many people are applying, where Israel's critics are applying a double standard.
Okay, that's running as a Democrat for you, right? That's not being able to form what is a very, very simple, cohesive thought based on a very, very simple moral calculus, right? I mean, but because you can't do that, because when you run as a Democrat, you cannot cross AIPAC. You simply cannot do it. Right.
But
it's
I don't
off
know what he's selling out for. Like, what does he think? He has a shot? Like, what do you care if you piss these people off?
Well, Marianne has no shot either.
Not only are you not going to win, they'll never give you an appointment. The crazy anti-vax guy, like you're never getting a job in the administration. So
No.
what are you bothering for?
It's the same thing as Marianne. You could take the Kennedys out of the Democrats. You can't take the Democrat out of a Kennedy. You know what I mean? Like, he's never going to turn his back on that club no matter what. And this is just a perfect example. I mean, that was just a disastrous answer. It was so clear. I mean, what came through in that answer was a sort of conscious selling out of his own principles. You could tell, it's not that everybody who criticizes Israel is anti-Semitic, but in his case, I think it is, because he gives Arab countries a pass. Well, I've never heard Roger Waters give an Arab country a pass. When has Roger Waters praised the Saudi government or excused the Saudi government for the crimes against the people of Yemen?
He's trying to find an excuse.
It's absolute nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. If you were going to pussy out like this, the best thing you could have done was just not say anything at all. Stay out of it.
I heard he's a Syd Barrett fan. That might be where this is coming from.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, we have a related segment that we're going to do. Obviously, RFK expressed support for Roger Waters after Roger Waters came under fire for dressing up as the rock star turned fascist character in the Wall film. He dressed up as that character in his current This Is Not a Drill tour. And obviously, he came to Roger Waters' defense.
It was Bob Geldof in the film.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He came to Roger Waters' defense and then backtracked on it once he got some pushback from some people who are aligned with the Democratic Party, who let him know, hey, you can't cross Israel, remember? He posed for photos and, appeared in videos with Rabbi Shmuley at the Israeli Day Parade in New York City. Just really a disgraceful performance. Yeah, right, exactly. Trying to walk back his support for Roger Waters. Cornell West today was on the Bad Faith podcast with Brianna Joy Gray. This is a little clip that she teased out. The full interview premiered earlier today. I haven't had a chance to watch the whole thing. We were prepping for our interview this evening, obviously. But here's Cornell West. What a contrast. Let's hear him. Go at RFK specifically.
A presidential candidate. And I think you just want this in any human being that have backbone, that have integrity, that have consistency, not to check what you deeply believe after you've had some dialogue or discourse with a group of people or a community that's going to be shaping and molding how you perceive the world. Think for yourself.
Are we referring to the tweet he put up with Rabbi Shmuley, I believe his name was?
But I think it's probably a whole network that he has. And it may not only be exclusively Jewish brothers and sisters. I mean, there's a lot of non-Jewish brothers and sisters who are still very much tied to a discourse that renders the suffering of Palestinians invisible. So it's not just a tribal thing. You see, people are generally convinced that Israel has a right to exist, and therefore it has a right to do whatever it wants to do, and that includes killing innocent people. When I asked my dear brother RFK Jr., Do you know what happened between July 8th and August 26th of 2014? 50 days. 551 precious Palestinian babies killed in 50 days. How many babies have been killed in the vicious criminal invasion and occupation of Ukraine? After a whole year. Who spoke out for those precious Palestinian babies? Were they somehow tied to Hamas? Were they somehow a threat to Israel? No, they're human beings. Their babies are just as precious as black babies, white babies, brown babies, indigenous babies in the American empire, or any other babies. And if he thinks somehow that each baby who was killed somehow was never in any way intentional, deliberate, they didn't know what they were doing, he needs to really get off the crack pipe. He must think that we have absolutely no sense of what's going on in the world.
There you go. So you can watch the whole interview. That's up on the Bad Faith channel. Now I'm going to watch it myself after we're done here. But yeah, that's the kind of moral clarity that this issue requires, especially if you're running as a candidate with no realistic chance to win, right? Like you can't even
that's
make
exactly what I was thinking.
You can't even make
you don't drop the crack pipe
okay,
reference when you're running to win.
Right. Well, exactly. But why? You're talking about, and this was what I mentioned to Jimmy earlier, when you run outside the Democratic Party, you can run on your own terms. There's no reason to hold anything back. There's no reason to compromise on any of these issues, right? This is about laying the groundwork for a movement that can succeed in big ways down the road. This is about getting it started. You have a big name, a big star, running outside the two-party system. If he can crack that 5% threshold, that would be amazing. Even if he can't, if he goes 2-3%, if his vote tallies are greater than the polling margin in certain swing states, that is enough to cause tremendous panic. That is enough to cause a shakeup of the system. And the way you do it is by expressing moral clarity like that, not pulling any punches, not tying yourself in knots the way RFK did when Glenn Greenwald asked him about this issue. That's what it takes. And you can only do that running outside the two-party system. You couldn't give Cornell West could not answer that question as he did if he were running as a Democrat. It would be suicide to answer that.
He could.
But it wouldn't get him anywhere.
But it wouldn't get him anywhere. I mean, running
and it would be counterproductive because when you're running as a Democrat, you're not building for something in the future. You're just building for Super Tuesday, right? So once you lose on Super Tuesday, it all goes away.
Right. Well, this, I don't think he'll frame it this way. We have to understand this as a mission to get to 5%. Although I retweeted a poll.
Well, he's not going to frame it. He's the candidate. He has to say we're going to win.
Right. I retweeted a poll that showed it was something like 32% of people given a choice between Biden, Trump, and third party said third party. Now, people say a lot of shit. Just like I keep saying, yeah, don't count DeSantis out based on the polling now. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. So, it's very easy for them to tell a pollster, yeah, I'll vote third party, but it's a very different story once you're actually in a voting booth. That's our experience. People say all kinds of things a few months out. But if he maintains that kind of moral clarity, I think there are enough of us at this point who are post-duopoly for him to possibly pull together that 5%. He really has to pull together the protest vote from all sides. Look, he's going to make his case, right? For me, as somebody who will probably be volunteering, when I'm talking to conservatives, I'm going to make a burn it down case. I'm going to make the case, listen, we have got to get a third party functioning in this system. You have got to get behind a third party candidate if you really want to burn this down. And I think there are more conservatives who want to burn it down than want to vote Republican necessarily.
Right. And, I think yes. I mean, I think that there's a certain logic to that. I think he has to go at it from all angles. So, Jimmy was saying earlier that he hopes he makes that appeal to, the white working class, right-wing populist Trump people, which he said he intends to do. He also has to go to major population centers in blue states because those are going to be where a lot of votes are if you can convince people to buck the Democrats, because those are going to be where people are less afraid to vote for him. right? Because you're going to get a lot of like progressive Democrats who you could walk off of the ledge by saying, hey, listen, don't worry, Biden's going to win New York anyway. Vote for Cornel West, right? Now, that's not the only argument you should make, because the point is here to destroy the Democratic Party, right? Not just to weaken it in places where it'll win anyway. But the point is 5% is 5% nationally, right?
It.
So you go to New York and you find a bunch of progressives.
Rack it up. Go to Brooklyn.
DSA, go to Brooklyn. Say, listen, they're going to win New York anyway. Don't be a pussy. Vote for Cornel West. You can rack up a lot of votes in New York, Chicago, L.A., Seattle, Portland.
L.A., San Francisco.
Exactly. And then also, obviously, take it to the right-wingers. Absolutely take that message there. And one of the things you can use to sell this to the right-wingers is, hey, listen, if you want a right-wing alternative party to the GOP, the way you're going to do that is by getting a third party over 5%. Like if the Green Party cracks 5%, that's good news for the Libertarians in the long run, because it just shatters this feeling that it can't be done, right? It just breaks people out of that like paralyzed state of mind. Right. So it'll just make it easier for more voices to, get to the table down the line.
If there was ever a time when enough people are that fucking fed up with the entire system that you could push a third party over 5%, it's this year, where people don't see much material difference for themselves in how they vote. Well, I'm not going to get anything voting this way. I'm not going to get anything voting that way. Let's just burn it down.
Right. And the thing that's exciting about Cornel West is he's a star. You have the ability to do that because you have a beloved and well-known person running the ticket, right? There are years that are better suited for third parties than others. 2020 was not well suited for third parties for a number of reasons. 2016 was, but, they had Jill Stein. And look, I happen to respect Jill Stein a great deal, but she's not Cornel West in the sense
Putin
that...
puppet.
Yeah, right, exactly. She's not a star. She's not a star, right? She can't inspire confidence that this can actually happen, right? You need a big name that people say, oh, him. I love him.
And our album.
That's what you need.
Our albums suck.
Right, exactly.
That never helps.
We went to Axel, right? Much love. Maiden is always the best. I think we got Axel on there. Thank you very much. We got him. This is where we left off. Nicole, thanks for the $20. I hope someone has enough cash for me to hear that bell tonight. Well, they did, and actually somebody else put in enough cash for you to hear the bell. We got one more singing bell that we're going to have to get to in just a moment. Terabrate, thank you. Thanks, Russell, for remembering to play the Maiden. There we go. Beautiful.
I got you.
Yeah, taken care of. Add the cowbell guy to your clips for... shit libs. You mean for the sound drop? Well, we added more cowbell. We added the walk-in line there. We have that. But we don't have a sound drop of the guy actually ringing the cowbell, which would not be a bad idea either. Thank you, Lloyd. Pardon me. Dwayne, when RFK embraced Shmuley Botich, I was done with him. Well, that's good.
I think everyone was, because I haven't seen anybody break our fucking balls about RFK since that happened.
No.
Since he disowned Roger Waters, that was it.
In fact, I haven't seen Zach at all since that happened. I'm a little worried about him. I mean, luckily, look, I'm very happy that people have the integrity to take the stand there that they should. We didn't hear any waffling or any bullshit, right? Even with Jimmy, I noticed, he has obviously interviewed RFK before. He's been sympathetic to his candidacy. And so, part of you thinks, I hope he's not gonna, keep singing his praises, and he's not, because this is a red line. Talk about red lines. This is a red line for people, as it should be. And so, I'm very, very proud of our community here for holding the line for Palestine. Tusker, thanks for the $2. RFK Jr. is in shambles, as our friend Nick Cruz would say. In shambles. Yeah, definitely in shambles there. No doubt about that. That was quite the answer. L.A., thank you for the $50. That's
snap.
Worthy of another singing bowl donation. Friends, allies, neighbors.
All right, I'm holding it away from the microphone for you DSA folks.
See, we're going to have to start speaking
with
about
the rim job.
We're going to have to start speaking about people the way Cornell does to our precious DSA brothers and sisters. So put a little love into the broadcast. You know what I mean?
That's true.
To our precious brothers and sisters at Democratic Socialists of America, we'll hold this away from the microphone.
You think they watch us?
We will protect your precious eardrums, right? Yeah, no, I probably not anymore.
Worthless and weak.
Let's read this super chat that you paid for. Friends, allies, neighbors, we need not agree, be honest, admit when wrong, forgive when asked, atheist too, and fight like hell against propaganda. More collabs with Jimmy Dore. P.S. Do dissidents is corn. Can't imagine a more beautiful thing. Jordan C. Corn poop. What is corn? What does that mean? Do dissidents is corn. I don't know what that is.
I don't know. Are they referencing the 90s band? But that's with a K.
That's with a K.
Yeah.
And I think that's with a K and a backwards R. Maybe not a backwards R. Yeah, I'm not sure what corn means, but thank you. I assume it sounds like you meant it as a compliment. The context seems like it's a compliment.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be Jordan shitting us out? I don't get it.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think this was meant to be a haiku. That's why you have the little slashes in there.
Perhaps. Thank you, Eldo. We really do appreciate it very much. People, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Very important. Thank you very much. Black Freud. So now we have to deal with a fourth string Kennedy. No, thank you. Yeah, no. I'm not a Kennedy Democrat. Not a Kennedy Democrat. Sorry, folks. Nicole Vance, thanks for the $10. President Xi just said today that Palestine needs to be its own state and some land taken back. This is about to get real. Wow,
I saw that he met with the Palestinian leader.
I didn't see that. I did not see that. We'll have to cover that on Sunday. That's big.
China is definitely taking its opportunities to become a alternative to American hegemony, and it's working. Because what have we done? We just, even before Ukraine, they polled the world. What's the greatest threat to world peace? They said the United States. They didn't say Russia. They didn't say China.
Right, exactly. Bennett Weiss, $2. RFK Jr. 2032, and so ever onward. Virtuoso, thanks for the $2. RFK seems like a David Gilmour.
Maybe that's who's putting it up to it. He's gonna announce David Gilmour as his new campaign manager when he gets rid of Kucinich.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting theory. All right, we're going to do a few more super chats in just a moment. One more final segment of the evening, though, folks, before we sign off. Want to thank you all very much for being here. Thanks to our guest, Jimmy Dore, for making the time for us. It was been a lot of fun.
And Bulla, thanks for being such a good sport about our Cornell endorsement.
Yeah, well, I have some ideas for what could emerge in the wake of the Extra Bulla campaign. We're going to talk about perhaps forming the Extra Bulla Global Initiative. A charity.
Well,
I mean, you can make some money off of.
We need to compete with the WEF.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. We should get paid. Let him make a little money off it. Right. All right. One more segment here. Here's Rachel Maddow. The evening that Trump turned himself in on charges of boxes in his bathroom. He gave a speech at his Bedminster Club in New Jersey that night. And here's Rachel Maddow explaining why it is beneath MSNBC to broadcast lies coming from the mouth of Donald Trump. Here we go.
Can't make it up.
Here we go.
That former President Trump has just...
Sorry, let me just get this from the beginning. All right, here we go.
I need to say that former President Trump has just started making public remarks, just as he did on the evening of his first arraignment on criminal charges. That was April, when he was booked on 34 felony counts brought by the state of New York. Now, tonight, after his arraignment on federal felony charges, he's speaking again, this time to an audience of his supporters that's gathered for a campaign fundraiser tonight at his golf club and summer home in New Jersey. We knew heading into this that he was planning to make these remarks. We are prepared for his pre-fundraiser remarks tonight to again be essentially a Trump campaign speech. Because of that, we do not intend to carry these remarks live. As we have said before in these circumstances, there is a cost to us as a news organization to knowingly broadcast untrue things. We are...
There's a cost to us as a news organization to knowingly broadcast untrue things, right?
That was was it Pat Paulson who said Kissinger winning the Nobel Peace Prize made satire obsolete?
Right.
Like
exactly,
Rachel
yeah.
Maddow saying that on MSNBC makes satire obsolete.
She is most known. What she will be remembered for, what she will go down in history for when the history books are written, she will be associated with the most flagrantly untrue story of the century, which was Russiagate. Like that was almost 3
Of
years.
The century so far.
So far. Almost 3 years of that. Brazenly untrue. We can't broadcast untrue things. There is a cost. The other point I want to make here, I mean, that's the obvious one, right? There's a cost to us knowingly broadcasting untrue
that's for the
things.
shit libs. I mean, the shit libs are the population of Oceania. Whatever you tell them they need to forget, they forget. They memory hole it. That's it. Forget about Russiagate. I mean, that's who that's for.
But
and that's their audience. You can get away with that audience.
There's a more conceptual point here that I think is almost even more important than the obvious absurdity of what she just said, which is that a presidential candidate who has just been indicted making a campaign speech at this pivotal moment of the campaign, that itself is news. Even if he goes up there and says untrue things, what he's saying is the news because he's a candidate in hot water, and this is a pivotal moment in his campaign. And the same people who took it upon themselves to be the safeguards of what? The norms and guardrails of democracy are now saying they cannot broadcast a presidential candidate's speech because the candidate might be lying, and because the candidate might be lying, his speech has no news value. I'm sorry, what adherence to what norms are you talking about? What norm are you upholding by refusing to cover the speech of a presidential candidate?
Well, this is a point that Taibbi really hones in on, that the news organizations after Trump got elected made a decision that they are the press in Nazi Germany or pre-Nazi Germany, right before the Reich takes over. And so they have a moral obligation to throw out the standards of just cover the news. And his argument has been they sacrificed their credibility entirely in that decision. And once you lose that, it's very hard to get it back. So in the course of making this choice, they're no longer in any way respected. They lost the influence that they hoped to wield by straight out running a 4-year assault on Donald Trump. They lost all moral authority by doing that. How can you regard it as news? I mean, MSNBC really wasn't news anyway, but the New York Times, the Washington Post, these things that were, kind of, that's it. Like all you've got left are the shit libs, and that's a very small percentage of the population.
Right. Exactly. All right, let's hear the rest of this. I'm not even sure if the rest of this is worth hearing, but let's try it anyway. It's been a while since I saw this. I saw this early in the morning.
To bring you the news. It hurts our ability to do that if we live broadcast what we fully expect in advance to be a litany of lies and false accusations, no matter who says them.
No, not no matter who says them. If the candidate for president says them, it's news that he says them. It's not news if you say them and you present them as news, which oddly enough you have done in the past, right? But of course it matters who says them. You're covering the campaign. What the leading candidate for the Republican nomination says is news, whether it's true or not. Obviously.
Well, and also
hang on one second. I gotta clip this. I'm gonna take a screenshot because I like the look on her face. You gotta use that for the clip.
All these pretenses at setting a moral standard or a journalistic standard, this is just a business tactic. By this time, they have to have realized that whenever they do this with Trump, they're throwing fuel on the fire. You're just reinforcing people's perception that if you really want to get at this despised aristocracy, support Donald Trump. They have to have figured this out by now. So they don't really care about that. They care about appealing to the 5 geriatrics that still watch this shit. And this is what they want to hear.
Right. Indeed.
And I do not say this with any glee. I hope it is clear that this is not a glib decision. We take our responsibilities seriously. We revisit decisions like this all the time.
What's very, very clear is that this is hollow virtue signaling to your brain dead audience. Oh, they have such integrity for not cutting to the speech. Even though they're going to probably be showing clips from the speech for the next week, because that's all MSNBC does, is Trump outrage porn. So it's not like they're never going to show the speech. They're not going to show it live because we can't predict what he's going to say, and we have to protect you.
They'll
from
clip it.
We'll clip the speech, and we'll make money off the speech all week. But we're going to pretend right now that we are this virtuous organization who's not willing to expose our audience of Chardonnay and Xanax mixing moms to the lies, the dangerous lies of Donald Trump, who was found with cardboard boxes in his bathroom.
No, it's really like this kind of news. You know, Jimmy was talking about it, sitting at a table with people who are, you know, it just repeat what they hear on the New York Times. I just had it out with an old friend of mine about that because he was like, "Can you believe what Ron DeSantis said?" I'm like, dude, like, do you have any opinions that you did not read on the New York Times op-ed page? It's just mind-boggling that people would, like I can hear them in my head. You know, for me, it's the guy on the Upper West Side. It's, you know, Sidney Applebaum. See, this is why I like Rachel, because she's honest and she's not going to take this shit from Donald Trump.
No, she's
not going to platform him.
What does she say? She's not going to take the bait, right? She's not going to take the bait. She's not going to stoop to his level. Right.
She's not going to give him a platform. Right. That's responsibility. That's responsible journalism. I saw somebody, you know, it's like they're massaging people's brains. You know, I saw somebody talking about what a gentleman Chris Hayes is. Oh, he said, "What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? These are all just paid propagandists." But that's if you sit in this soup all day. That's what it does to your brain, and it's just you wind up brainwashed, a brainwashed zombie of it, because all day long, all of these different news sources, they all construct the same exact narrative, so you're getting it from all sides. You know, you ever confront one of these people, and you'll say, "Yeah, you need to stop getting your news from MSNBC," and they'll say, "I don't get my news from MSNBC." Oh, but you read the Times, yeah. Well, it's the same shit. It's the same. They all have the same storylines.
Right. I mean, Hayes is like, he is the nice guy of the network, right? His role is the benign propagandist. Chris Hayes is like the Bobby Bacala of MSNBC. Right. You know, the mobster who hasn't actually whacked anyone yet, right? Yeah. He's a nice guy, right?
Yeah.
Nice guy. He still
know.
takes the money, right? Bobby was amazing. You know, he still got paid off of the propaganda, but you know, he's one of the nicer ones. All right, here we go.
Make the best call that we can in real time every time. But tonight, our call is this. We will monitor that speech by the newly indicted former president. We will not carry his remarks live. If he says anything newsworthy, we promise we will turn that right around and bring it back to you.
We can't let his fastest followers hear what he's saying.
In the meantime, we're going to the first round of auditions for next year's Puppy Bowl, everybody. We'll be broadcasting that to our audience. That's more newsworthy than whatever Donald Trump is about to say.
Yeah, I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to play this game for the whole election season? Like, what if I wind up having to eat shit and he becomes the nominee? Which, I mean, that's what really concerns me here, because I'm going to look pretty stupid if he becomes the nominee. I've been talking this DeSantis shit for a year. But
Wayne, that's my point. Yes, he was a thug who eventually did kill somebody, but for the longest time he didn't actually commit a murder himself. That's the point. Bobby Bacala, he was the nice guy who still profited off the criminal enterprise. That's what Chris Hayes is in MSNBC. He's a nice guy. I mean, he still gets paid. He still gets the blood money, but you know, he doesn't get his hands dirty. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
I just couldn't let that go.
Sorry.
It's one thing to have my political knowledge impugned, but when someone questions my knowledge of The Sopranos, I have to defend myself immediately.
Well, and this is why I was starting to get into this with Jimmy a little bit. Like, I think this election season, the fact that they have lost control of the narrative is going to be painfully obvious, even more so than it already is. And the question for people in our space is, what are they going to do about it? Like,
right.
Historically, they've pressured these tech platforms to limit voices like ours. When they really get to the point that they feel like Cornell West is polling 8-9%, maybe more, when you've got Donald Trump beating Biden in the polls, what do? Do they pull channels like this off the air, or do we just become public enemy number one? Right, especially once the Republican wins. Right, is it going to be our fault? Are we all going to get surrounded, and then are they going to try to pull us off? Like, it's a real concern. That's what I'm saying. It's a real concern.
What they'll come up with is some kind of, look, I mean, if you thought they smeared Jill Stein as, a Russian op, I mean, who the fuck knows? Who knows, what the line will be if it comes to that. But in all seriousness, folks, that's why it's important to go to patreon.com and support the show and make us censor proof. No, I'm serious. Like, that's the name of the game.
You're right.
There are outlets out there that will still have us, like Rumble and stuff, and Substack. We're on a Substack. Go to dudissidents.substack.com. Go to Rumble and follow us there. But if you can go to Patreon and kick in a few bucks a month to help keep us going, that not only helps sustain the operation, which, by the way, we are adding a third stream in July. I'll get into that in a bit. But it helps censor-proof the operation. It helps free you to be able to take some chances that you can't otherwise take. And that's kind of what Jimmy was talking about.
It's a real concern. Like, I didn't want to drop his name because I didn't want to put him possibly in a compromising position. But hey, man, if they'll whack Matt Walsh, they'll whack Jimmy Dore.
Right.
I mean, they were making plenty of money off him. And you also have to remember, even as popular as Jimmy's show is, this space is just nothing compared to some of the other spaces. And that is partly the way they changed the algorithm to suppress independent media. But you got guys who just do videos about how deep a hole you could drill, who do fucking 2.5 million views.
This ain't the cash cow. The cash cow is movie criticism, film.
That's what I'm saying. So there's no reason in terms of their bottom line, if they're getting enough shit, that they might not just say, you know what, it's not even worth it.
Yeah, this is not the value add that a lot of people think it is. And in that case, Rumble will take up a lot of the market share, because the premise of Rumble is that it's a free speech network. So Rumble is not so much about movie reviews and video essays. It's more politically oriented, because the branding is that you can come and express your views, right? Fucking whatever. The top 10 Wes Anderson movies doesn't need a free speech platform. Nobody's going to censor that, right?
Right.
Okay, let's keep going here. We have a few more super chats that we want
yeah, we should mention, because we covered this. The Supreme Court upheld the Native Americans in that case. I forget what the name of the act is.
Okay,
they ruled in their favor.
That's excellent news. So the Indian Child Welfare Act has been upheld. That's excellent. Do you know what the margin was?
I don't.
That's good.
And I don't want to state this as a fact. Some people have said they watched our segment before they ruled.
They were part of the 300. That's a good thing. Only takes 5. Only takes 5 Supreme Court justices to watch the video.
They were 5 of the 300 that watched that.
To sway the bench. Yeah, exactly. Really only takes 2, right? Because, Thomas is going to, I don't know what the hell it went, but, it takes those swing votes. Basically, we need Roberts to watch our videos about that. We need to tag the
we gotta
swing
just
votes.
Tag the justices from now on. God knows nobody else is watching those segments.
Exactly. Danny RG, thank you for the $9.99.
The Indian Welfare Act.
Yeah, the Indian Child Welfare Act. Yep. RFK friggin' said he's a champion of Israel. He has zero credibility. No, like I said, I'm proud of the community for taking a stand on that, because we had a lot of RFK stands in the audience who were doing a lot of rationalizing all along the way. But then it's good to know that people have the backbone to say when enough is enough.
Yep.
Cornell, not crack pipes. Yeah. Thank you for the 9.99.
You should send that to his team.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. They saying Chris Hedges is going to be involved with that campaign, I hear, in some capacity, as an advisor, which is great.
Yeah.
That's great. I would love to have Cornell and Chris Hedges both on the show. That would be amazing. RFK, I'm sorry. I lost my place. Here we go. DC, thanks for the $5. Jill Stein's 2016 recount effort shut down by a federal judge proved that our federal elections are illegitimate. Hope that doesn't get y'all a strike. Not anymore, it won't.
Not anymore. We're allowed to talk about it now.
Yeah, now we're allowed to talk about that. We actually are. They're saying that they're not penalizing channels for that kind of misinformation anymore. So we are allowed to talk. But, it's funny that you mentioned that, because when in the aftermath of January 6th, I actually wanted to do a video essay about the Brooks Brothers riot, which was a Roger Stone op in the 2000 race, where basically you had a bunch of guys dressed in, these white-collar garb. That's why they call it Brooks Brothers riot. They went to a ballot counting center, and they just shouted out, "He threw away a ballot." And they caused a riot, and they stopped the count. And the whole name of the game in 2000 was they wanted to slow the count before Gore took the lead so that they could get the court to squash it.
Right.
And I was going to do a whole project about that. I was going to do a video essay about that because I thought it was relevant. Friend of the show, Willie Bragg, did a segment on the 2000 election and had that video pulled because it was election misinformation. So I said, all right, I guess I can't do that.
Wow.
I guess I can't do that.
But now you can.
Now you can. Now you can. So maybe I will. Wait, what? Oh. Bulla didn't realize that his campaign is in shambles. Extra Bulla is in shambles.
You're in shambles, Bulla.
You're in shambles, my man. You're in shambles, my man. But don't worry, we will get a global foundation started in your name, in your honor, so that your legacy will live on.
Your pro-crack agenda just can't hold up to the competition.
No, but we're going to create a wonderful, NGO. We're going to get you set up. We're going to get you set up. Don't worry. You're going to be just fine. We're loyal guys, right? We'll take care of you. Right, Danny RG, $9.99. Thank you again, my friend. Is Rachel trying to make up for the millions of free airtime they gave him in 2016? Well, this is their thing. What did they say? They've done this before on MSNBC. It's a common stunt.
Well, that's what's going on.
We're not
across
covering
the
Trump
media
speech anymore. Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting question what CNN is going to do now, because basically, I forget his name, the guy who actually is the CEO of the parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery now. He basically brought LinkedIn to get rid of people like Don Lemon and then blamed him for it and fired him now.
Right.
So what direction do they want to go in now? Now they have some weird triumvirate running it. Like, do they still want to go in this straight down the middle direction, in which case they'll just cover Trump when he gives a speech? Or are they going to do this virtue signaling shit? It's an open question how they're going to handle themselves in this election cycle.
Indeed. Dave Delarai, thanks for the $10. Maybe we should join the Belt and Road Initiative, get some new infrastructure and upgrades. Thank you, Dave.
It's true. We need China in here to start rebuilding our roads.
Indeed. Join Cy. Thanks for the $5.50. I keep watching Rachel, but I stopped cold once saw Dore. Join Cy. I keep watching Rachel. I kept watching Rachel, but I stopped cold once I saw Dore.
I saw Dore.
Did he turn you off to Rachel Maddow?
Dore red pilled you. Is that
Did
what
he
you're saying?
red pill you on that? Is that what you're saying? That's a will. We will assume that. Thank you. L.A. Search. It's corn on this platform. 32 million views. Best jokes require explaining. Love the content and channel. All right. Well, thanks.
Grazie.
We'll look into it. I'll search it. I can't search it when we're on the air, but I will search it. All right. Is that our show?
I think that is our show.
I think that's our show. Folks, thank you very much for being here.
We got one last one. Just came in.
Oh, just came in? Sorry. Yeah, that's not, that's not bad, Meteor Dreams. Rename your panel the Multipolar Mafia on RBN. Yeah, that's not terrible. That's not terrible. I like the post-duopoly show because I think it, that show is sort of...
It explains exactly what it is.
It explains what it is. It's like a special bi-weekly show that deals with those particular issues, right? Electoral politics outside the two-party system. That's sort of the focus of, more or less, broadly speaking, that show. But I do like Multipolar Mafia. That's not bad.
Oh, actually, Illuminati is going to be joining the lineup because she
right.
suddenly freed up.
Yeah, exactly. All righty, folks. Well, we want to thank you all very, very much for being here. Please. Here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the link to the Substack in here since we got 934 of you guys or whatever we got. Go to that Substack and please sign up. You could sign up for free. Okay, if you could sign up as a paid subscriber, it helps us a lot. If you could sign up at Patreon, it helps us a lot. If you can hit that join button under the screen, it helps us a lot. Either way, though, please sign up to the Substack. It is free. If you can't manage $5 a month, it's free. You get alerts whenever we go live. We do drop occasional written pieces. We post several of our videos there, announcements when we're going to go live. We put all of these live streams out in audio podcast form. And so it's good. It keeps you in touch with us. This show was Corn. All right. Thanks, Extra Bullet. We appreciate it. The reviews are in. Corn. We're Corn. All right. Great. Excellent. Whatever the hell that means, we'll take it. Before we go, I just have to say, for YouTube's sake, everything Jimmy Dore said, totally wrong, crazy, insane.
Totally wrong.
Right-wing, grifter. He's a right-winger is really what he is. We didn't want to say it to his face because, we were afraid he would scream at us. But, he's a
If
he's
I get any more boosters, I'm going to glow in the dark.
He loves Putin, all that stuff.
Putin
Just, I don't know. I don't know why we had him on, as a matter of fact. It was probably irresponsible.
Jimmy who?
Yeah, Jimmy who, right? Right. Yeah. In retrospect, YouTube, we're sorry for we are sorry for this show. We apologize.
We have seen the error of our ways.
We'll see the error of our ways. It'll never happen again.
We're inviting Secretary Buttigieg on for the next show.
Yeah, right. We'll have Mayor Pete on for the next show. Thank you guys very much, everybody. Hit that like button on the way out. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. We are live every Thursday night at 8, Sunday night at 7. Starting in July, we will be on 3 times a week. Sunday nights at 7, Wednesday nights at 8, and then for our Euro friends overseas and for our early birds and for our commuters, we will be doing a morning show starting in July every Friday at 9 a.m. Those will likely go from
I'm doing
9
those in a bathroom.
to 11. Yeah, exactly. We'll get the coffee and the bagels right out for that. So that's the schedule. That's the deal. Go to Substack. Go to Patreon. Help us out, please, if you can. At the very least, hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button so you stay in touch with us. And maybe we'll see you all again on Sunday for our next live stream, 7 p.m. Thanks very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Until we meet again, please be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.